Birthright Part 2. Worf spreads knowledge of Klingon heritage and tradition in a place devoid of both.
Worf, now a prisoner in a Romulan camp, is informed by the other Klingons there about what really happened to them at Khitomer. They tell him they were knocked out and captured, and that the Romulan commander Tokath had hoped to trade them for territory.
And the Klingon High Command refused to acknowledge Klingons had been taken prisoner,
so they ask Tokath for permission to stay,
to save the honor of their families at the expense of their own.
Worf says he would have been glad to find his father there because there's no room for shame in his heart anymore, and I get that he came to terms with the possibility of his father's survival last episode, but saying something like that is still in direct opposition to entire episodes we've had before focusing on Worf. And the head Klingon, Lakor, says he would hope his own son would be Klingon enough to kill him if he found him there.
Worf explores the camp and is annoyed to see a boy using a Klingon spear to till soil, and it turns out the youth are under the impression that the long-ended war is still going on and their home is a safe haven.
Worf comes across the Klingon woman from last episode, Bael, who tells him he should be glad to be away from the war, but he says a safe prison is still a prison.
And once he's alone, he activates the homing beacon in a very dramatic, conspicuous fashion, and messes around with some door components before being interrupted by the Romulan in charge, Tokath.
And I thought it was dumb that apparently no one thought to search him when they captured him. Tokath tells him he sacrificed his own military career to keep those Klingons alive, and he tells Worf not to disrupt the peace they have, and even says that he married a Klingon.
Later, Worf drops his modified piece of door tech by some barrels, and he hears Bael singing a traditional melody, but before they can discuss it further, his homemade explosive goes off.
And he takes advantage of the distraction to scale the wall.
He manages to make it to Shrek, but is ambushed by the Klingon boy from before, so he chooses not to smash his face in. I liked how Saturday morning cartoonish it was when those Romulan guns came to both sides of Worf's head right before the commercial break.
Back on the Enterprise, the others finally notice that Worf is missing and decide to go looking for him.
And it turns out he did tell them where he was going, but that was never addressed in Part 1, so maybe the writers realized how stupid that was.
After Worf gets a tracker implanted under his skin, he goes out to meditate and show off his Tai Chi.
And the Klingon boy, Tak, is assigned to watch him and make sure he doesn't cause trouble.
Bael questions Worf about what he's doing, and she and the other spectators become interested and try to imitate him.
I thought it was pretty comical how the others immediately started mimicking him.
Tak tries to stop them, but Worf takes him down, so Tak goes to report him.
Later, Bael shows Worf her mother's old battle equipment, but they are caught, and Worf is thrown out.
Later, around a campfire, Worf tells stories about the Klingon hero Kahless. Tak says he thinks the stories are stupid, but Worf says they tell them about themselves.
Afterwards, Bael is hardcore flirting with Worf, but right before they make out, he sees that she is half Romulan.
And freaks out. She tells him she thought that he already knew that Tokath was her father, and asks what the problem is.
Worf is disgusted, and tells her about Tokath's part in the Khitomer massacre.
She tells Worf that her father went to the camp to escape the war, but he tells her to ask her parents about the truth.
Back on the Enterprise, they've retrieved Shrek's recent flight plans and head to one of the planets he recently visited in the hopes of finding Worf.
Worf goes to Bael to apologize, but does a bad job, and she points out the problems with his perspective. She asks him to accept her for what she is, but he says he doesn't know if he can, and she storms off.
He goes outside to see the youth using more Klingon stuff, again in the improper way, and tricks them into using it the right way by working to their stupidity.
It is a difficult skill to master. Perhaps you are too young.
Worf says the game is supposed to train their hunting skills, and when Tak tries to say those skills are useless, Worf challenges him to try them out.
After a lot of deliberation, Tokath agrees to let Tak and Worf go hunting together,
because Lakor says they can take Worf at his word that he won't try to escape.
Out in the jungle, Worf teaches Tak the way of the hunt, as well as how to smell things with his nose.
I can smell it.
As Tak's Klingon instincts slowly begin to awaken, he gets more into it.
Back in the camp, Bael is starting to ask about leaving to go visit the Romulan or Klingon homeworlds, when Tok returns with his kill, and immediately launches into a giant Klingon manifesto.
He tells them all that he's learned that they are actually warriors who have forgotten their past, and begins singing a Klingon victory song that they previously knew only as a lullaby.
And all of the Klingons join in,
including Bael, which upsets Tokath. Later, he talks to Worf one-on-one,
and accuses him of showing the youth what he wants them to be, not who they actually are.
He tells Worf that this is the only place and time that Klingons and Romulans have ever lived in peace, but Worf says that Tok is proof that the Klingons have been denied their true selves.
And Tokath says if Worf doesn't stop, he'll execute him, and Worf is all about that.
That death will be honorable.
Later, he practices his Klingon Tai Chi in his room when Bael comes in.
She offers to remove his tracking device, but he says he won't leave, and will die as a Klingon.
She says she still doesn't understand why he's so set in his ways, and asks him if he loves her. And he admits that he does, despite her being a filthy Romulan.
He says he wishes he could take her away, but she counters that no one would accept her for what she is, and leaves.
At the execution, Tokath says that if Worf isn't put to death, he will destroy everything they have built there. But Worf says he is being executed due to speaking the truth.
As the Romulans are about to fire, Tok says they'll have to kill him too, and is then joined by many others, including Lakor and Bael.
Tokath's wife says that maybe their prison shouldn't be their children's prison as well.
Worf tells the youth that their parents are making another great sacrifice for them now, and if they leave the camp, no one can be told of its existence.
Worf is sad to see Bael go back to her parents, which was weird, I don't know what he expected. Later, he beams onto the Enterprise from a Romulan ship, along with Tok.
I was wondering if he had told the kids about humans, because I assume they had never seen humans before.
Yeah, I had that question too. They must be seeing a completely alien race, but they seem to have no reaction.
Worf tells Picard that he didn't find the camp, and that the youth were survivors of a crashed ship.
No one survived Kittimer. I understand.
And Picard says he understands as if he actually understands, but I don't see how he could figure out the truth.
Well, we don't actually know how much Worf told them.
I feel like it's still a shortcoming of the writing of the episode.
I agree. Birthright Part 2. Overall?
This episode turned out much better than I expected after Part 1. I liked the concept of the camp, and it was good to see Romulans and Klingons not acting the same stereotypical way they usually do. I also thought it was good that Worf didn't completely abandon his racist perspective all of a sudden, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen. I thought the ending of his and Bael's not-quite relationship was disappointing. They didn't even have another conversation after everything, which you would think they kind of came to a peaceful conclusion, I guess, but then she just kind of goes back to her parents and they never talk again. Deep Space Nine was still there in the background, but they did even less with it this time than the previous episode, making this entire crossover feel pretty pointless. But I did enjoy this episode. I thought it had some good conversations between characters, and I really liked the overall ideas. I gave it a B+.
I give this one a B. It was cool seeing a different side of the Romulans. The only other time I can remember we saw that was in The Defector. And I liked how it made Worf re-examine his existing beliefs, at least for a while, but in the end, it strengthened his convictions. I thought there was some missed opportunity with Bael, as she clearly pointed out that no one would accept her, and if she had come with them, that could have turned into a chance to expand the story somewhere down the line. And I wonder if Worf will ever have second thoughts about future interactions with Romulans based on these experiences. Probably not. I thought the romance subplot between them was unnecessary. They still could have hit all their plot points without them falling in love with each other over the course of 10 minutes. And I realized they only had 45 minutes to tell the story, but it was pretty silly how all of the youth immediately switched over to Worf's point of view. I would have liked some discussion between the youth and their parents about the situation. And I liked Lakor's subtle character arc of atonement. It was clear that assigning the youth to watch over Worf and not really trying to stop him from spreading Klingon knowledge would influence the kids, and it was more than I expected from a one-off side character. I was disappointed that the entirety of the Data dreaming plot from Part 1 was completely neglected, but overall I thought it was a good episode. It was rushed, but pretty good. That's all I got.
That's fine. You can end it like that, I think. You don't have to always have, like, a thing.
Romulans. Thanks for watching.